What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 56 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Having a pretty all right week. Got my bachelor party coming up in a couple days. We'll talk about that on One More Thing at some point, I'm sure. It's going to be nice. It's been a while.
If you survive it, we'll talk about it on
If I survive it, I guess that is true, yeah. You never know. Great if you've ever seen The Hangover, right? Lots of crazy things can happen. Who knows, right? Who knows? So we'll see what happens. If I don't end up...
so Pete's not on the next 2 weeks of episodes, so...
I died in the woods. Yeah, I just come back like 3 weeks from now, and I'm just like, oh, like my beard's all long and shit. It's like I've seen some things. But yeah, man, I'm having a good week. I'm ready to talk games with you today. That's where I'm at today. So I hope you're ready to keep up. You know?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Just off hot off a new Shenmue stream, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if you haven't already, go check out the new channel, FlipScreen Live, where we've got the archive of Steve's misadventures, I'll say, in Shenmue. The entire playthrough of the first game just went up last week. We'll have Shenmue 2 kicking things off. That'll probably start going up on like Monday of next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And maybe, whatever we stream on Thursday. We'll see what happens. But we've got a fun show here. We've got a start screen I'm excited to jump into. But before that, let me remind you that this week's episode of the FlipScreen Games Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of August for the last time. They are Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobi, Mary Berry, Smokey Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. Y'all are the real, still the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and our sister shows here at FlipScreen Games. If you want to go and show your support just like they did, head over to that Patreon and you can get a bunch of perks and goodies. You can get this show early. You can get our exclusive podcast, One More Thing. You can get access to our patron exclusive Discord channel and a bunch of other cool stuff. Go check it out. And starting in September, we're kicking off the brand new tier system. And if you want to go see all the changes coming to Patreon, make sure you go and watch the FlipScreen Games Direct that we did a couple weeks back, because things will be kicking off. And we're going to start having some voting powers, some brand new voting powers coming to you as patrons. So if you want to write in and get a guaranteed main topic on the show, or at least the ability for the community to vote on if your main topic gets to the show, you're going to want to go check that stuff out. Of course, there's a bunch of other ways you can come and be a part of the community, even if you don't have any bucks to toss our way. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website, and you'll find links to all the places that you can get involved, including our Discord, our email, if you want to write into the show, a bunch of other good stuff. Go check it out, however you choose to get involved. We appreciate you tuning in. So, let's start things off right with the start screen. This is another prompt that I found while I was just hanging out on Reddit, and I found it was a good one. So it's a real thought-provoking question. This one was over on r/games, and it was from user, I'm going to say Clism, is how you say this. And they said, which games have the best random junk you read while exploring, right? And it's very much, the question is, what game has the best environmental storytelling, right? And I think it's easy to think about, right? Is it journal entries? Are you finding, the voice clips that you're listening back to?
Yeah, I was going to say, I always liked, I think one of the first games that I can remember doing this was BioShock, and how you picked up the cassette tapes in BioShock and listened to those. They were great.
And you also would have
really nice.
The conversations.
Would you kindly?
Sure, right? And you're getting threaded through the main narrative that way, but then you're finding the recordings. And there's even a lot of really cool, small, environmental storytelling moments in BioShock. I always think of it's one of the first interactions you have with a splicer, and she's crying over a baby carriage.
Yeah, it's over the pram, and you think it's going to be a baby in there, but it's not. It's a madam,
Yeah.
or an Eve hypo, I think it is, and it's so cool. It's really really cool. I love that, and that really echoes for me like a scene in Speed. Have you ever seen the movie Speed, where she crashes into this pram, and it's just cans in there, but she's like freaking out about
Yeah.
it, and I think it must reference something in media, but I really love that moment. I think that's a really cool one. But even just the way like you interact with the big daddies and the little sisters, and I think just like the posters and the environment, and you can learn a lot from the posters. Like you learn a lot of what the world was. It does such a good job of crafting. And like another shock game that does it, I've played of recent memory, Prey is pretty good at doing it as well. They have similar things, and they have like terminals you can read through in a similar way to like Fallout does. Um, I struggle sometimes when it's like reading because I feel like I want to consume all of this content. But if I'm in the heat of the moment, if I'm in action and I'm picking up text documents like in Resident Evil, you like pick up dossiers and things like that. I'll often just forget and I won't go back to them. Whereas that's why I way prefer like audio clips so I can just listen while I'm continuing on with the gameplay. And I think that's why BioShock is probably the one that stands out for me.
And I totally agree with you because I am definitely the person who will listen to every voice clip and seek out every voice clip, whereas like stuff that like is like more like a codex or something like that, right? Where like you're just kind of getting like lore added to like a database. I do read that stuff if I care, but how much of it I read and how urgently I engage with it like is much less, right? Like I think about like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, right, which are universes that I'm like really a big fan of. Or even like something like Skyrim or Fallout, right? Where it's like,
Yeah, I loved it in the Elder Scrolls games, like all the books you could get.
yeah,
But
you want to learn more about that world because you know so much about it, but there's also even more that you don't know, and like that's I think one of the most compelling things about like that's how you make a good fantasy universe and whatever, right? Whether it's fantasy, science fiction, whatever, right? But like having a lore rich universe, I think that's part of it is having good environmental storytelling where there's like little moments where you're learning about the world through people or like you're having stories told to you in like non-conventional ways, that like are unique to video games. And like that's something I think like you bring up BioShock. I think Horizon does that really well, right, with its voice clips. And again, it's another example of like that game I think does something really important where when you plays a voice clip, it doesn't make you stand still and listen to it because that sucks. And that is
yeah, I hate that.
I'll
Yeah.
still do it, but it's not as engaging as
No,
being able to
I
just
won't.
and just keep
I
moving.
won't do it. You know, I really liked I think they did some of it in Horizon, but I remember it from the Division and the Ubisoft the Division game. They have these like holograms that they project, and it's like a reconstruction of what happened in that moment and in
Yes.
that
Yeah.
area. I
Horizon
really
did that
like
too.
when
Yeah.
games do that as well. Yeah, because you see it on the focus, don't you? But I really like
Yeah.
when games do that, and it's kind of like, oh, this is something that happened here in history. And you definitely got that in Horizon Forbidden West when you kind of learn where that group of people came from, right? You're at in that sciencey area. And you kind of see all the holograms and stuff, which I really like. I think that's a really cool way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But yeah, in terms of random junk you read, um, I don't really read much of it, which is the problem. I'm always like, there's some stuff in, say, Prey, for example, that I remember laughing at because I was collecting all of there's like one level you're on, and they're all playing a Dungeons and Dragons game, and you kind of collect all their character sheets as you go around, and like someone's new to the game, and like she has a character sheet, and she's like reading about it, and she also has like audio clips on her answer machine of like, oh, you come into the D&D tonight and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
And you can't really construct this story of like, oh, they were all a group of friends and they were coming together and like she's new to the group and so they're introducing her to their like games night, their D&D night. And you kind of learn who they are through their characters. And so you don't know their names, you just know, oh, it's the orc, it's the human, it's it's the rogue, that kind of thing. And it was a really cool little moment that stood out for me in that game in particular.
I definitely appreciate that in general. Like, I think environmental storytelling is one of the things that is most unique about video games. You know, that like you can't really do that in any other medium. I guess you kind of can in like literature, because you can like, or in comics, right? Like stuff like visual medium can do it, but like it's not. I feel like with movies or TV, since you're not controlling the pace, you can't really do it. Like, you can put shit in the background, but it's really like that's more Easter eggs than it is environmental storytelling, right? More often than not. With exception, right? Like, something that comes to mind is like the beginning of like A Quiet Place is like a lot of like, they're just showing you like, oh, here's what happened in like newspaper clips that are in the background as you're swinging by, things like that. You can attempt that sort of thing, but like, so much of, you know, like you think about walking sims, that's all they are, is environmental storytelling, right? It's like you're in an environment, figure out what happened, right? Or like experience this narrative and interpret something from it, you know? Like, I think that's such a unique and valuable thing that video games are able to offer, in the same way that, like, you know, the whole like you getting to feel like you're an actor in the story is unique, right? Environmental storytelling is such a big part of that, because you're the one dictating what your character sees or doesn't see. So when you like, you know, quote unquote organically find something in the world, right? That feels like a moment that you're having, rather than, you know, just like another beat in a story, right? And like, you know, you think about like, again, like you bring up like BioShock or Horizon or whatever, and you think about how much those games are able to teach you about the world of Rapture, or like what happened in Horizon before, you know, the apocalyptic event and that kind of thing. And like trying to understand like how people lived, and like, you know, what was the culture of Rapture like, and what was it like when it fell, and like, you know, and whatever, right? Like, what was it like when the Pharaoh plague started?
Which I really like that in stuff like Resident Evil as well. Like, you learn about the Umbrella Corporation and how it all went down, and you have like these dossiers, and it like gives you a little bit more extra info if you want to. I kind of wish stuff like The Last of Us had it. They really went for like the cinematic approach, and you get exactly what they want to feed you. But I'd love to be able to have like a little bit extra, and like you can get it if you go and read, say, like their comic book, and you get
I think the game does it sometimes in really good ways, though. Like, I think about the you're gonna have to remind me which game it's in. Actually, I don't remember if I'm playing as Joel or Ellie when this happens. But when you're in the hospital, and there's like, it's two, and there's the big like, you know what I mean. I don't want to like spoil it, but you know, it's the big monstrous enemy, right? As you're going through that, there's all these little like diary type entries you can find and stuff that are doctors who are working in this hospital, and you find out that this is the hospital, at least in this area, where like the first case was documented, and they didn't know what was happening. And then it's like they're talking about, and like you get to the point where you fight this enemy, and if you had not looked at any of that stuff, you're just like, oh, it's a big enemy, that's cool, it's a video game. But if you've read all this stuff, you're like, like there's this context to it, and it does give you a good amount of, I think, like that environmental storytelling around like stuff that's not relevant to Ellie's story, really, right? Like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
And that's what I really like about it. It's always stuff that's like outside of the scope and outside of the story.
It's just like an opportunity for like good short fiction, you know, like within the universe, which I appreciate, because I think well executed short fiction is really satisfying. I'm noticing that a lot and if we get to what we're playing this week, we'll talk about it. But I started replaying Telltale's The Walking Dead, actually, this week.
Okay.
I hadn't played it since like I played it when it was new in like 2012 or whatever. So I booted it up. I'm like in chapter 4, so I'm almost done with it. And that's something I'm finding that I really like about it, and like the way that it's telling a story. But it's also something that I think like I always appreciated about The Walking Dead in general, is that like there are like moments, right, where like, because the overall story of the game, right, Telltale's The Walking Dead, is like about this character Lee, and he's trying to keep this young girl Clementine alive. That's, if you had to boil down what the game is about in 2 sentences, that's what it's about. But in like almost every episode, you get these moments, right? Like just in the last episode I was playing, you're like holed up in this house, right? That you're like hiding out in. And like in the house, you get all these little moments about like who the family was that lived here, right? Like, the way you get in is there's this like spoilers for this game that came out in 2012. There's a dog door that you get in by digging up a dead dog in the backyard and getting the collar to be able to get in through this electric.
Nice.
So, yeah, so it's a little bit of that.
Gated ones, yeah.
Yeah, and so like your character enters the house feeling upset about. There's like the context of that you just did this thing that you're kind of uncomfortable with. And then like on the refrigerator, there's a child's drawing of the little boy that lived there and like me and my dog. And then like he's like, oof, like you could see how that affects the character, right? And then there's like you go into the house and you see like the family portrait up on the wall and like, you know, you find like all these little and the dogs in the portrait. It's like, oh, like they really love this dog. The dog passed away. Then, you know, all this like you're learning all this stuff that like you don't need to know any of that. Like that's not at all important to what's going on in the main story. You don't need this context. You don't need to, you know about these characters that are long dead and you're never going to interact with. But like it's a humanizing thing, right? Like it places you in that place and makes it feel like a real lived-in house that was someone's home, not just a space that you're interacting with in a video game, right?
Yeah, I like stuff like that. I think it's important to build out the world that you're going to spend hours and hours and hours in. It's not like a movie where you are just there for an hour and a half, maybe 3 hours at the most. You're there for like potentially 60 plus hours, depending on like how long the game is, and it's good to feel like the world is lived in. A different type of game that has like junk you read is Disco Elysium. Like I remember going through and reading all of the stuff on like all of the descriptions of the clothes, all of the descriptions of the items. Like there's so much stuff you can read in that game. And it all adds valuable context. Like you're like, well, why do I get like +1 on this if I wear this specific item? It's just like you read it and it's just like, oh, okay, it makes sense as to why this gives me like a buff on this and a debuff on that and things like that. I always thought that was really fun.
Yeah, it has its own little like weird internal logic.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. I've been thinking about how I really want to replay that game and like roll a different kind of character, but I'm also like, I know I don't want to make different choices than I made, which is a trouble I have with games like that sometimes. Because, like, I think what I'm going to try to do is instead of being, like, a really emotionally intelligent and like, raw intelligence type guy, like, try to, like, be, like, a total, like, idiot but strong, but also still try to be nice and make nice guy choices. Because I don't want to be mean. I don't ever like to be mean. I just can't. I can't do it, you know?
Oh, being mean's great. I enjoy doing it. Because I played some of it through with you on stream.
You were just trying to be an asshole.
I made different choices when I played it. Like it took me a long time to find out what my face looked like in that game. It wasn't until I got to the shack that I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll have a look and see what my face looks like.
Damn, that is a long time.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I can never bring myself to do it. I just don't like being mean to people. Unless they're jerks, that's fine. But, like, you know, when it's like you could be, like, mean to Kim. It's like, Kim's great. I love him. He's so nice. Why would I be mean to him?
He can be a dick as back, though. Like, he gives as good as he takes. And I like the banter between the two of them when you are nasty to him. I think it's funny.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, this is, like, one of the easiest things that you can do to make me love your game. Is to care about this shit, right? This is I think the stuff that really makes a difference in my mind is the random junk, right? The random junk is where you really get into the special sauce, I think.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for going on that walk with me. I thought that was a fun one. Let's jump into the talking point for this week. PlayStation 5 is getting a price hike in several key markets. And folks are not happy, unsurprisingly. So there is a couple of angles to this. PlayStation announced this via a post on the PlayStation blog, as they're wont to do. And the TLDR is essentially the same explanation that was offered by Meta for the Quest price increase, that there is because the headline of the article is PS5 price to increase in select markets due to global economic environment, including high inflation rates. So essentially, inflation is driving up the price, so we're increasing the price of the device. We have it is Europe, the UK, Japan, China, Australia, Mexico, and Canada.
It's like most of the world apart from the USA, really.
Right, which they did clarify that select markets not listed above may also receive price increases. So, it's not...
But on the first paragraph, it specifically calls out that the PS5 will not receive a price increase in the United States of America.
Oh, look at that. Shit, I didn't see that. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder why. I imagine it's because we're the largest market.
Quite possibly, and they know that their competitor's not, and I would imagine Xbox is making a bit of headway in terms of competition in the US market versus, say, Japan, where they probably stand no chance.
Yeah,
so you can safely increase the price in Japan, but can you really safely do it in the USA at the moment?
Probably not, right? Especially when there's already a shortage of the box.
Yeah.
So makes sense, I guess, when you think about it that way. But it is interesting.
It does make this console very expensive in comparison to the competition in some markets, namely Europe. I think the UK, we got a slight bump of £20 up to $479 for the Blu-ray version, $389 for the digital edition. But Europe is €550 now, which when you do the calculation, it's $550 as well. So it's a big old price increase of $50 or €50, and on top of that, the games are they were at €80, which makes it $80. So it's like,
dude,
they're feeling the squeeze there.
It's fucking rough when you look at it in some of the other, like in Australia, it's fucking $800, $799.95. In Canada, it's $650, and like I know that like that's the dollars aren't worth the same amount, so it's like is what it is. But like that's a ton of money.
Every single time you do the price comparison, it always comes out to around $550.
Yeah, totally.
And yet the USA has not had a price increase to $550. I think if it had, it would have made sense for this price increase to go across the board. But it just feels like the rest of the world gets shafted while we subsidize the US's consoles to be at that cheaper price.
Okay, and fair enough. But also, we've been doing that for years with the price of games. So,
Not really.
Yeah, we did that math at the beginning of the generation, though, right? When like the price went up in Europe, and it like now it's the same again, so it's bullshit.
But it's not the same again.
No.
It's €80 in Europe, and like that equals $80 in America.
That's what I'm saying, right? Is that the price of the euro and the American dollar have evened out, but at the time of that difference, the euro was much stronger. So like it, and we also you hadn't had a price increase in however many years. We hadn't had one since the fucking halfway through the. Whatever. We talked about this.
I'm not against them having to make a price increase, right?
I am.
It's business, but I kind of feel like on the games, I mean, like,
on the
games, it makes sense because
I agree with that.
They do cost more to make. But the price of a console, when your competition isn't putting it up, and when everyone's feeling a squeeze in what's going to be another global recession, it just feels greedy again.
Yes.
And you can't swallow another 20 quid.
Yeah.
You really have to pass that on to your customer again.
I think the thing that makes it particularly bad is the digital edition of the PlayStation, I believe, is sold at a loss. But the disc version is sold at a profit and always has been. So, they didn't need to pass that They didn't need to pass that increased cost on to consumers. Like they did that to maintain profitability margin, right? So that in the next report, they don't have to say that the PlayStation 5 is less profitable than it was because of global constraints, right? Or at least in these markets where I think probably arguably it might be more difficult, right? For whatever, right? Because like when you think about America and that the U.S. is their biggest, the biggest market, and that like the idea of funneling a ton of PlayStation 5s into America and then distributing them amongst the states, right, is probably a much simpler process than, you know, we have to send however many to Australia and deal with that country's laws and deal with the UK and then deal with Europe and then distribute that amongst the countries in the EU and, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? Like I can understand why they made the decision to do it in these markets and not the US, but either way, it's a super fucking greedy decision that they didn't need to make. They could have easily taken that hit, and yeah, maybe that version of the console is no longer profitable with every sale, but it doesn't need to be. That's like always pretty much been the how consoles work.
The business model, isn't it? It's you sell the console at a loss and you make the money back on the software because you own the platform, and every single game on that platform is giving you 30%.
And with the disc drive, the discless version, it's even better, right? Because you have no alternative. You can only buy things from them, or I guess if you want to go buy a code on Amazon or whatever, sure. But
no, they don't sell codes. PlayStation stopped selling codes.
Oh, right. Fuck, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
There is only one place you can buy it from, and you buy it at the full whack of €80 in Europe.
Right. Well, if it's a new game and all that withstanding, right? But with that in mind, they've already clamped the boot. They've already made a more profitable business model and increased the cost of software, which is the primary way that they're making money anyway. So it's kind of like it's a bad look, I think. I think it's a really bad look because it would have been easy to not do this and look like the good guy, and they were like,
Now everyone else looks like the good guy again. And they still look like the greedy bad guy, and it's that narrative that everyone's been kind of saying for the last 2 years. It's just like, oh look, they're the ones putting the price up to $70. They're the ones that are saying you got to pay to upgrade to a PS5 version rather than just getting a free upgrade like the Xbox does. And like I understand some of those things are business decisions, and for all intents and purposes, like The Last of Us Part 1 looks like it was the right decision to remake that game.
I'll die on the hill that the increased cost of games is okay. Games costing $70, I really, in my country, right? Like in the context of my market and the market reality.
Say it was $80. If it was $80, would you feel the same way?
No, because it would have been a $20 increase, and I don't think that. I think that's too high of a jump. I do, and like I know that, it's different in every market, and like when the price changes and everything is different. So like everyone's experiences are going to be different, right? But in my market, right, like we hadn't had a price increase on a boxed AAA game since what, the Xbox 360 era.
Yeah, PS3
is when they went up to $60. Yeah. And that was over 10 years ago. Right? Like so, it's like the idea that in that time every other thing, right? Every other form of entertainment that I enjoy is more expensive than it was 10 years ago. It costs more to go to the movies. It costs more to buy a comic book, whatever, right? Like everything's gone up in price. And games have only gotten more sophisticated. They cost more to make. And I am also somebody who argues that I want to exist in an industry where developers are paid more, where crunch isn't a factor, all these things. That also makes games cost more to make. And do I think that cost should be passed on to, the C-level executives and those folks? Absolutely, right? The upper management at video game publishers do not need to have high multi-million-dollar paychecks. Salaries. That's obviously, I think, a thing that anybody who is on my side of the political spectrum would agree with. But we also know that that's not going to happen, right? Like all the CEOs of the world are not going to slash their salaries so that we can keep games at $60. So, I can accept the idea that, a brand new AAA video game that uses 4K assets and all this shit that we have decided that we want costs a little bit more. Okay, right? Fine. But when it comes to this, and I think it's the same thing with the paid upgrades, right? It's just a bad look. And I think comparing them to Microsoft, I don't necessarily think is fair, because the Xbox brand is supported by one of the biggest, most profitable companies in the world. So they can afford to be like, fuck it. Right, we're gonna give all our games away on Game Pass and this and that.
In the same vein, like Meta's businesses as well. Like, Meta is fucking massive, and they price hiked their headset. So right. I don't know. I wonder how much Xbox's console is profitable anyway. Like, are they making any money on the Series X? Probably not. They're probably making a little bit on the Series S.
Maybe.
Do they feel the need to to kind of tack 20 quid on, when they're probably going to get that back in 2 months of Game Pass Ultimate anyway? So
that's the thing.
Do they really care?
They just have a different business model, right? And I don't think that in most cases it's fair to compare everything one-to-one and be like, see, they're the bad guy or whatever, right? Like, and that's the whole point, is that I can justify Sony being like, no, these games cost $70 and that is what it is, and if you don't want to buy them at $70, wait for a sale. Fair enough, right? Fine. But this is not that. This is so clearly a thing that they could have avoided, but they didn't, because they don't want to, rock the boat with shareholders, right? And like, they want to be able to point to the graph and say, look, this is an incredible success. We're continuing the trend of this being our most successful box yet, right? Because, and you said it a couple weeks ago, right? PlayStation is the thing that keeps Sony afloat. So, decreasing the percentage in profitability of their flagship device is something that I'm sure that they're not willing to do. And, that's certainly not to defend them. That's the whole reason I went to the trouble of making that comparison, is like, I think this is egregious, but I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, and this comes at the same time that another model of PS5, a new version, has been spotted in Australia. That's like, I think it's 300 grams lighter, which is not an insignificant amount of weight. Sorry, 200 grams lighter than the previous version in 2021. But the disc model is 600 grams lighter than the launch model. So like over half a kilogram lighter. I don't know what that is in pounds. Let me have a look, because I know probably you're all just like, what the hell is that?
I don't know what that means. Those sound like big numbers. I don't know.
1.3 pounds. So it's like it's a significant weight decrease. The last time the weight came off of the cooling unit, the heat pipe, and the like copper was swapped out for aluminium. I'd imagine that's where some of the stuff is coming from. Part of me wonders as to whether they're struggling with finding components, and if having to swap to different components and different manufacturers and things like that is one of the reasons why this price increase is happening, or if they're actually saving money on the newer models and they're just increasing their profits.
It could be. That seems less likely to me. That feels like a bridge too far, even for Sony. But who knows, right? Stranger things.
Because copper costs a lot of money, and which is one of the reasons why they chopped it off the heatsink in the last time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. But I think the thing I'm most interested to see by the end of this generation is how long it takes for Sony to not be the only one asking $70. Because I don't.
I mean, I don't know that anyone will go other than Sony.
I don't know.
Because it's one Microsoft is keeping their platform at 60 for a reason, and I don't think they want any of their partners to charge more than 60.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But it's interesting because, like, this is generally how it happens, right? Is one person does it, and then everyone else is like, oh, they took all the bad press, now we're going to do it. And that's happened.
Yeah, but I think like it's been bad press after bad press after bad press, and everyone's just being like, seriously, something else? Oh, and now you're increasing the price of the console? I kind of feel like
just
they've
focus
got to
on
ride
just
this wave a little bit. Got to ride the wave a little bit longer for maybe we'll get towards the end of the generation. We'll get some others.
I'm just saying, just think about it just from the pricing side of things. I don't know. I feel like Xbox could get away with it now.
I don't think they will though, because they don't really care about selling you games. They want to get you a subscription product.
But like, why not do it then? Think about
will.
it, right? Because if they make the game $70 and they're like, hey, market realities, games are more expensive than they used to be.
Yeah,
but with the power of Xbox Game Pass, you don't have to pay full price ever. And then you're like, oh, okay, you're right. Because then even think about it. Even if you do want to buy the game, you get a discount. And it doesn't cost $70. You're only paying $70 if you don't have Game Pass, which is their entire fucking business model is buy Game Pass. So like,
I wonder if PC pricing comes into that though, because obviously they have quite a big presence on PC. They do a lot of PC only games.
Yeah.
Yes, some of those are coming over to console with like Flight Simulator obviously came over, but we haven't seen stuff like Age of Empires come over. And I wonder if PC pricing factors into it, because they do that Play Anywhere thing. You buy it on PC or you buy it on Xbox. You can play them on both platforms. It's that cross-buy thing that we spoke about that PlayStation's possibly doing on episode 2 of the Steam Deck podcast, if you want to go hear about that possibility. I wonder if that factors into it, that they don't want this discrepancy in pricing that Sony's now stumbling into, where the games on their platform are $70, but you go buy them on Steam and they're like 50 or 60. And when you can go to like third-party key websites and they're even cheaper.
That's not true of third-party things, though, is it?
What do you mean?
Like, you just said that you can buy the game.
The Play Anywhere thing?
No. You said you can buy a game on the PlayStation platform and it costs more money. Can you actually give me an example of that? Because I don't know that there is one.
Well, they've got that discrepancy that they're going to run into, I think, with Miles Morales. It's going to be the first game we see that's going to be a PS5 game that's also on Steam.
I don't think it'll be a problem though, because it's already been priced based on that on PlayStation 4. I think it'll just match that price point.
But the PS5 version costs more than the PS4 version, right?
Right.
That's my thing. Is it going to cost more? They're going to match the PS4 version, or they're going to match the PS5 version?
Oh, I guess that's a good
question.
And
when are we going to see the first $70 game? Because
it would be $40 or $50 though, so it'd still be less than a normal.
That game arguably has had like a lot more dev work go into it now that it's been ported by Nixies. They've upped the textures. You can play at higher resolutions.
Yeah,
it's got ultra wide screen support.
They didn't charge more for Spider-Man though, and you make the same argument there.
I know. Yeah. But that's my point, is I don't think Microsoft wants to run into that situation where you potentially have price discrepancies, because I don't think Steam buyers and PC players are ready to pay $70 for a game, whereas they can kind of force their console buyers to do it because they've already locked them in on that platform.
That I think is an interesting point, and it's one I don't totally agree with. Like, I see where you're coming from, but the thing I think is interesting, right, is I don't think PlayStation players are ready to spend $70, but they are doing it. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody wants things to cost more money, but if everybody in the games industry holds their hands and is like, games cost $70 now, so deal with it, then what are we going to do? Not buy games?
Yeah, but I think you've got one of 4 platforms like charging $70. We've got Xbox, Switch, and PC where they're not being charged at $70.
Yeah, but what happens when Nintendo puts out a successor to the Switch?
I don't think it's going to cost any more. I really don't. I don't think the successor to the Switch is going to replace the current Switch, and I think they're going to want to keep the pricing across the board. If anyone was going to jump on a price increase on their consoles, I think it would have been the Switch. I think it would have been Nintendo. Because they don't sell their consoles at a loss, and they never have. And I don't think they ever will.
They have. The Switch isn't, though.
No. And I don't think that...
The Switch is sold at a profit, which is... That's pretty much unheard of. Like, that's very much an outlier versus, like, every other console, basically. I'm trying to find a history of, like, how prices went up. Because... Here we go. Let me see. Because I think it was a very similar kind of trajectory here, where, because I believe the first to raise it last time was either Xbox or PlayStation, and then the others followed suit like shortly thereafter. In 2005 and 2006, the introduction of $60 video games accompanied the launches of the Xbox 360 and the PS3. This was a $10 increase from the average $50 from the previous generation. Yeah, so I mean, it looks like they did it at the same time.
Yeah, and I just don't think Microsoft has any desire to increase it because they just don't care.
Yeah,
and I don't know who's setting the price on that platform. Is Microsoft saying no, games on our platforms cost $60 and that's the max we're going to allow you to charge for a standard game? Or is it basically, if Square came in and was just like, yeah, we want to sell our games at 70 because they seem to be the one third party developer that's willing to go there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I will be really surprised if the others don't follow suit. Because I think what you're saying about Xbox is true, but I also think that, like, I think you can kind of tie that into their value prop in an interesting way. So, like, why wouldn't they do it? And with Nintendo, we all know Nintendo wants to make as much money as they can, right? Like, if they think they can get away with charging $70, they will. That's why they never put their games on sale. Like, it's, you know? So I'm very interested because I think if you're right, it's going to be so interesting because Sony being the only one making that change right now, I think they stick out like a sore thumb. And like, I bet you're right that the reaction has paused other people's, desire to make that move. But I at least am of the opinion that they are all waiting for the moment that they think that they can get away with it. And
yeah, and that might well be like God of War, when it's like the first real big hot PS5 only. Is that PS5 only, or is that coming to PS4?
That's the last one that's coming to PS4 as well.
So it'll be after that then, because that's still going to be the case where you can get that for cheaper if you want to do the upgrade process that I went through with Horizon. So you could still get that one for 50 quid in the UK if you want to, I guess.
So that's what I'm talking about, man. It's ridiculous. Like, our dollar's worth the same amount.
You can get it.
I can't get it for 50.
They're not the same. They're not the same.
What do you mean? The
£50 is like £50 in US dollars is like 60.
It's still that discrepancy now?
I'll have a look for you. £50 is $58. So like, I can get it for £50, but that makes it 60, which is the price you'd be paying for the PS4 version.
That's fine. I can live with that. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's going to be a really interesting one to see what the fallout of it is, and if everybody just leaves Sony in the cold on this one, or if they're ready to follow suit as soon as they think they can get away with it.
I mean, the only other thing that might happen is Sony runs their platform, and their games look like premium products at the $70, right? And every other game on their platform is running at this cheaper price. And then it might be the third-party companies are just like, well, we don't want to seem like we're an inferior product. We feel like our game is at the same level of quality as, say, The Last of Us or Spider-Man. So we're going to price it at that. Yeah. And then that price then might come over to other platforms, like if it's a game that comes out on PlayStation that also comes out on Xbox. If Microsoft allows it, then the price might come to the Xbox that way. But I don't think Microsoft is going to increase the price of their games anytime soon.
I think you're right that they're definitely the least likely. I don't think they have a major incentive to do it, and it's something that they can look at as like a differentiator, right? But I don't know. I guess we'll see. But on the note of, I guess depending on where you come down on the side of the argument, Sony overcharging for things. The Last of Us Part 1 has had its early reviews drop, and they are overwhelmingly positive. It is sitting at an 89 right now on Metacritic, which is, I think, pretty damn good. I think
what was the original?
Let's find out. Definitely higher, but that's also not surprising. I think if you thought that this was going to get a higher review than the original, I think that you were kidding yourself. 95.
Yeah.
So quite a bit lower. But I think that makes sense, considering. Right? There are definitely a lot of people who I think are going to just like they're going to come at this with a certain bend because of the cost and whether or not they feel that it's worth it. If you look at it on Metacritic right now, the top critic average is 88 and 92% of critics recommend it. So
nice.
And, I think a couple big outlets gave it a pretty high review. IGN gave it a 9. Easy Allies gave it an 8.5. GameSpot gave it an 8. Quite a bit of high 8s to 9s to higher, depending on where you're at. So, I'm interested in this one, because we've talked a lot about this game, and I've argued that I don't think there's anything wrong with them wanting to remake this game. I know there's a lot of negativity around that and debate on whether it's worth it or whether, this is a game that needs a remake. Why don't you remake something else? And I think we've talked to death the conversation around, like, should this exist? Should it not? Why is Naughty Dog making it?
It exists at this point. So, like,
right.
It's coming out next month.
So my thing is, looking at this, seeing these high reviews and seeing this level of satisfaction with the product from most people, where are you at with it? Because The Last of Us is one of your favorite games of all time. I know it's a game that you really love quite a bit. I only played it for the first time in 2020, before the sequel came out.
I didn't realize that was your first time, if I'm honest. I thought you played it before.
No, we talked about it back then. Yeah, that was my first playthrough. And, I liked it a lot. I think this series is really, really exceptional, and I am definitely interested in playing it again, at some point, and kind of experiencing this version that's souped up and has some of these fresh bells and whistles and all that good stuff, right? Being able to benefit from some of the technology that went into Last of Us Part 2, which I think is inarguably technically a better game, whether or not you like it as much. But for you, as someone who's played this game a couple times and like you did just play it in recent memory, like, is this one that you're feeling like motivated to go and pick up? Does seeing this really positive reaction move the needle for you at all?
It doesn't. I'm really happy that more people are going to get to experience it and play it, and seemingly looks phenomenal. Look, I watched some of the new video that PlayStation put up of the Last of Us Part 1 rebuilt for PS5. They had like some interviews talking about like the details and things, and it looks really interesting. And then I've seen, I think Gene Park's really the only one that's spoken about it over at the Washington Post, and his take was like something that Sony's never going to market is like the level of violence they've put into the game as well. It really surpasses what they did in The Last of Us Part 2.
Like,
so
this game is more violent?
Yeah, they've like taken it to the extreme. Like, bodies can explode and like things that tear out and stuff like that. Not like the level of violence of like Ellie with the things she does in the game. I don't think anything can surpass that. But just the way it's displayed on screen. One thing I think I'm torn on is the accessibility features, because as phenomenal as they are, I hate that they're kind of paywalled behind a $70 game, that if you wanted to play this game and you weren't able-bodied, that the only way you can do it is to pay out more money if you played the game.
I don't think that's fair. Like, what, you expect them to go and add that to a game that they made in 2009? Like,
I don't.
Is every publisher supposed to go back and add those features to every old game? Like, that's just not realistic, right? I think the fact that, like,
I'm glad
that's part of why they're remaking it, right? And making a definitive version is because like they want to add that stuff.
I think before I'd seen the reviews and the new trailer and things like that, I kind of assumed that this was a little less than it was. Like, it's way more in depth than I thought they were going to go.
That's what they've been saying. Nobody wanted to hear it.
Because like the original trailer they did was terrible. I really think they did a massive disservice to the work they'd done. It was a cinematic trailer focusing in on just the pre-rendered cutscenes that were in the original game. You never saw any of the like real-time interactions or really any of the like real-time cutscenes that they showed. Digital Foundry's got a great breakdown over on their channel, which I recommend if you're interested in seeing a comparison between the PS3 version, the PS4 version, and the PS5 version. Definitely go check that out because it's night and day between all of the generations. Like it's a marked improvement, but I don't think I'm going to pick this one up at launch. Despite all of that, despite how excited I am for it, I think I want my next playthrough of this to be on PC, on my Steam Deck, and I think I'm going to wait for it because I've played this game so many times. Yeah, I've played it. I've played this game 5 times. I don't need to play it for a 6th time on my TV again. If I'm going to play it, I'm probably going to play it on PC again.
That's wild to me. I just like, because it's like, what's the point?
Need to play it again.
Fair enough, I guess.
I don't think really it being in 4K and 60 FPS is the draw for me. It's the visual fidelity is more than that, and it's the way they've like lit the environments and the models, and it goes beyond just like resolution and frame rate.
For sure. I can't imagine like not wanting to experience that on your PlayStation 5 versus like on your Steam screen where it's going to basically look the same as how you've played it in the past, but a little bit worse.
I don't think it's going to look the same as I played in the past. Like, if you go see how they lit their faces back on the PS3 and on the PS4 version.
Yeah, and like they flesh out the environments and stuff.
To this.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. I don't know. To me, like, I would, if I was going to do it again, I definitely want to play it on the PlayStation 5 with like the quicker load times and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, but I'm not ready to play this game yet at all, I don't think. I think I'm happy to just wait. I played it enough times anyway, and there's enough coming out this year that I've got stuff to play. If the year was as empty as I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, and this was like the only hot game to tide me over until the end of the year, I'd pick it up in a heartbeat. But the fact that, you know, I've got a list like this long, like a mile long, I don't need to buy The Last of Us again.
Yeah, that's I think where I'm at with it is like it has less to do with like the game itself as much as just like I just have a lot of other things to play right now, you know, and like to deviate the time to go play something old that I have played somewhat recently and all that kind of stuff.
Because I replayed The Last of Us before Part 2 came out as well, in the same time you did.
Right. So it's only been like 2 years.
Yeah. So I can remember everything that happens anyway. And yes, there's differences, and yes, there's the new workbench, and there's the upgraded AI, and there's all of this stuff, and there's probably going to be nuances, and it'd be really cool to see like, oh, Tess looks like that now, and Ellie looks like this now, and that would be really awesome to see. Yeah. But I don't.
There's not urgency to get to it.
It's not going to change it. Yeah, no, it's not going to change the story or the experience I've had.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Because I think I will get it. I think it's just a matter of like when rather than if. You know, it's like whenever I am in the mood to play an old game again, or to specifically play a Naughty Dog game, or to specifically play The Last of Us, I'm sure I'll pick it up. Like if I can catch this game on a sale a couple months down the road, like in between releases, then I think it's time for me. I think what I'm bummed about is I would like to play it, but I just, time-wise, it doesn't fit, you know? Like, I am currently trying to wrap up the games I started over the summer so that I have space for the new games that drop this fall. And I already feel like, one or two of the games I'm currently playing, I'm at real risk of not finishing. And, I already decided to randomly start a game from 2012 this week and shove that into my schedule too. So it's it's just,
of course.
I really do want to play it, but I think I don't have that sense of urgency and immediacy of I gotta buy this day one, gotta pick this up at $70 right now. Even if I think that that's fine, right? It's fine that it exists as a $70 product. For me right now, it doesn't feel like it's particularly what I need, right? So
yeah,
it's
I still struggle with that price. I really do, and it's I know there's a lot of hard work that went into it, but I really struggle that they price it the same as The Last of Us 2.
Well, it's more than it. The Last of Us 2 is $60.
Okay, then I really, really struggle with that logic. Then
I agree.
It's about half as long as well.
It should have been less, right? I think if they had priced it in the way that they priced Miles Morales,
yeah,
people would still be mad, but I would
tell you what though, if it was 70 like Miles Morales was, and you got the PS5 version of The Last of Us Part 2 included with it for 70,
that'd be the way to go.
I think it was that's a no-brainer. You get the Last of Us as a collection, and it's $70. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, I think that would have been the way to go. But yeah, I think that's why you wait for a sale, right? Don't pick it up day one. That's fine. You don't have to.
Yeah,
it'll still be there waiting for you when you're ready to play it, right? That's cool.
Yeah, and I there's just too much, right? It's coming out on the 2nd of September.
Mm-hmm.
The 9th is when Splatoon comes out, and I know I'm going to want to play the hell out of that. Ooblets comes out on the 1st of September. I want to pick that up as well.
So tomorrow.
There's just so there's so much I want to pick up. And I would struggle to play it.
Yeah, or I won't, and I just won't play any of those other games. Which
and I don't want that because I want to be part of it as well. It's I want to be able to talk about that. I want to be able to talk with Chewy about Ubits and get excited about it and talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Do people really want to hear us say The Last of Us 1 is a great game?
I don't know. They'd probably want us to hear us say, "Oh, is this worth my money?" And I don't know.
Well, for all intents and purposes, if you haven't played the game, it's worth your money.
For sure.
If you have played the game, it's really just a value judgment for yourself.
How much do you want to play it right now?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you really want to play it again? Are you willing to pay for that again?
And if the answer is yes, then go for it.
Yeah, but you could pick the PS4 version up on the PlayStation Plus collection, I believe. I think it's on there. And if it's not, it's one of the greatest hits games that you can pick up for 15 quid. So if you're not,
but come on, who wants to do that? You want to play
you
want to play the best version. Come on, that's like being oh shit, it's when people are
we got Coke at home.
Yeah, and you go, it's RC Cola, fuck that shit. No, but to me it reminds me of when Persona 5 was on the PlayStation Collection, and folks are like, should I pay for Royal? It's yeah, you should pay for Royal. It's the better version. You want to play the good one. Come on.
Yeah. I hate that they did that and they never put Royal on there.
It's weird. Yeah, you'd think they would have gotten to it eventually, but
that's the other thing that's coming out in October. Royal, within the game club. It's just
never see it come down. I'm so ready, baby. I'm ready to go back. Let's do it. Yeah, right? And it's that's also an old game that I'm going to play again. So, I don't got time for this right now. I really don't.
2022 is just Pete's nostalgia year.
It really is. I'm just out here playing the classics and being yup, they're still great.
Yeah. I do it every Wednesday on twitch.tv/FlipScreen Games. I just play old games I like.
Yo, that's the problem, though, man. Nobody wants to watch me play the old games I want to play.
They'll do it. They will do it, honestly. You'll get new people, and it's great. I found out today on stream that Shenmue is really popular in Brazil because a lot of people bought the Sega Mega Drive there and then moved on to the Sega Dreamcast because everyone loves Sonic, and Shenmue just came in as in that side loaded on.
That's fucking sick.
I've got nothing else to play. What am I gonna play? I'll play Shenmue then. So now everyone there is into it.
Shenmue, one of the 5 games on Dreamcast. You know, like you got Sonic, you got Shenmue, you got Soul Calibur.
Dead or Alive?
Seaman.
Seaman, yeah. Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi will be enough for anyone. Like those 2 games, and that system's complete for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Those games do slap. Yeah, for a console that is like memed, it does have some solid games. There's that the fighting game that everybody really likes too. Oh, I can't remember. I'll tell you what though, Steve. I'm looking at footage of this game. I'm seeing some of the body explosion stuff you were talking about. This fucking looks sick. Like this looks really good. The lighting in this gym is like fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it looks really good.
And I'll tell you what, man, like me and my whole nostalgia bag right now, like I'm really enjoying going back and playing Xbox 360, PS3 era games. So I got to say, the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm like, man, I do want to play this though. Like I do want to play it.
God.
I just wish I had time. I wish I had the time for it, you know? Like,
do you want to do, you got to decide, do you want to do this? Do you want to do another Spider-Man run? Like, you know.
That's the fucking thing. That game came out like weeks ago. I haven't even touched it. You know, it's like, I don't, you know. Who has the time, Steve? Who has the time? Can't just be out here fucking, you know, playing everything, but that's exactly what I want to do. So you tell me, what do I do with that, man? Because it's like
you need to get the patrons to decide for you.
I feel like every other year, it's like a new thing. Like, there's like a new thing that I feel like I missed out on because it's like, oh, man, like, I was playing a lot of multiplayer games this year. I got to get back into single player this year. And then it's like, oh, play a lot of single player. Okay, got to get back into
But then a new fucking multiplayer game comes out and you get sucked into it every single year. Last year was Halo. This year,
Pokemon Unite.
Multiverses. Yeah, and this year, but Multiverses is just taking over your life. Splatoon's about to come out, and I really hope that takes over your life as well.
I hope so. Yeah. It's tough, man. And then it's like, and then I'll be like, oh, you know, I really want to replay some games. I want to do some retro stuff. And then it's like, I want to play new stuff. And then I didn't play enough indie games this year. I gotta play all these indie games. Okay, now I missed this big AAA release. It's like, motherfucker, man, come on, you're killing me. We even slowed how many games come out, and you still can't keep up. You know, it's a problem when you got taste as varied and exceptional as ours. You know. It's tough. You just want to taste it all.
It really is.
You want to sample it all.
That's why you got to do what I do. Don't finish the game.
No, I can't do that.
Had enough?
I can't do that.
Just move on to the next one.
It's disrespectful, you know?
Think of it like a buffet. You go, you have what you want of that dish, and then you move on to another one. And you get to have like a wide variety of food that leaves you satisfied on the whole, but you're not just full up from one meal. From one experience, from one taste.
I don't know though. Like and maybe this is too deep to get into an hour into the show, but like I feel like that leaves me feeling hollow a lot. You know, like I like the sense of completion that comes with like having a time with a game and then being like, and now we're done, right? And like this journey has been
for
complete.
Me, it's because I don't want it to end, so I just never finish it. It's like when a TV series ends that you love. Like I just finished Better Call Saul, and I'm really sad that it ended.
Yeah.
And it's like you know, I don't
Part
want it
of
to
me
be over.
craves that feeling though. You know, it like, and I it's because I'm a sick person, you know. But like, I that specific kind of melancholy is appealing to me for some reason, right? Like the sense of like being so invested in a thing and then it coming to an end and you being like, wow, like this was a moment of my life, right? Like, you know, like I think of Persona 5, right? And like I so heavily associate that with being like isolated during, you know, lockdown and, you know, having you know, Shibuya and like the Phantom Thieves and everything as like an escape from that, right? And like when that came to an end and it was like my time with that game was over, like I didn't want it to be over, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm going to miss these characters and I'm gonna miss the like connection I'm feeling to this game and this world, and I want more of it, but there isn't anymore. And I can never play it for the first time again, right? Like once you've done it, you did it, and like you can play it again and you can, recapture a little bit of that nostalgia or whatever, but like it's never the same as playing it for the first time.
I know,
right?
I know. And I'm never going to get that with The Last of Us. Like The Last of Us is really special to me because it's the game that got me back into video games, and that's why it means so much to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd stopped playing them, and it got me hooked. It got me back in. It made me realize and remember why I loved video games so much, and I can never experience that again.
The thing is, though,
experience that like sense of awe.
The thing is, though, and I think this is a little tougher with video games than with certain other art forms, but going back and playing old games, it's been making me realize that there is a lot of value, I think, in the same way. I really love revisiting a classic or something that I think of as a classic, right? Like something that I was like, oh, I love this piece of art. It's very formative for me, right? Like I read this 20 years ago or whatever, 10 years ago, and it meant so much to me then. And like revisiting something like that and seeing how it as a work has grown with you, I think is really a really rewarding process as like a appreciator of art. Like going back and like replaying the BioWare stuff and being like, wow, this hits just as hard as I remember it hitting. And like
sometimes you get it the other way, right?
Sure, yeah, of course.
It's no great.
And that happens, right? Where like you are gonna have like, oh, like this doesn't hit the way that it did back in 2006 or whatever, right? Like that, of course. I think is just as much of a risk, and like I think when it comes to like non-video games, the thing I always worry about is like, oh, how is this aged culturally, right? Like have we, have we moved past a time when we thought things like, you know what I mean? Like that I think is always the big, especially with like comedy and stuff like that. Like there's so much where it's like, wow, like this is straight up offensive to me now. And that I think is also useful though. Right? Like of being like, wow, cool. Like, look, I can see how much I've changed as an individual looking at this and feeling differently about it. And I think that you get that. I've been getting that same experience going back to these games and being like, yeah, like with Walking Dead, having the moment of like, yeah, this is just as good as I remember it. The writing here is as good as I remember it,
That's good.
The tense moments are as good, and it's like, yeah, like you can never have the feeling of like it happening to you for the first time and like the utter surprise of it and all that stuff. But like I don't know, there's something about it. Like
you get a different feeling. It's a different experience, a different feeling. I get it when I'm playing Shenmue 2. I'm just like, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember walking around this area.
Right.
It's like going to an old town and exploring it and going like, oh, is that where it is? Is that where that cafe I need to go is? Oh yeah, it is, because I remember going to that park and it's like near there, and later on we're going to do this thing. And it's fun. I do enjoy it. And talking about growing as a person and not finding things as funny anymore, I will never, ever forgive you for ruining 30 Rock for me, but you did. You pointed out its flaws.
Tina Fey sucks. I'm here to tell you.
And it's... Hey, Mean Girls, do not ruin that for
me.
Mean Girls is phenomenal.
I love Mean Girls, but there's things about it that are extremely problematic, all right? Like,
yeah, there are.
And that is like... That's Tina Fey. But hey, it's not what we're here to talk about. But you're right, I did ruin it for you, and I'm not sorry. We all have to grow past these things. I had to decide I hated How I Met Your Mother now, so you have to grapple with your own bullshit.
It's okay. I realized How I Met Your Mother was trash a long time ago. I'm glad you figured it out too.
Oh, I mean, it's been years at this point, but it's like it doesn't. There were years of my life where I was like, oh, I love this. This is so important.
Oh yeah, I thought it was great. I thought Barney was an awesome character and
no,
terrible, awful person.
And that's the thing, right? I feel like with games, it's so interesting because games are so experiential. And like so much of it is about like where you were in your life when you were playing it and like how you were relating to it at that time and all this stuff, and like going back and trying to like, either ascribe new meaning to it or like having those moments of like feeling like you're back in this space you haven't been in, since you were a kid, or in your early 20s or whatever, right? Whatever the time period was. It's very interesting. Like it's such a different vibe, but I've been finding it to be really, I don't know, it's been a really awesome tool for self-reflection in a way that I don't think I was expecting. It's like there's the nostalgic dopamine hit of it all, but also just kind of like really looking back on things where it's like, okay, like how have my tastes evolved and what are the things that haven't changed, right? And like, why do I connect with this emotionally, right? Like, what are the things about it that it does that are different, that like strike a chord with me in a way that is unique and hard to replicate? Like, I think that is one of the things about it that's really interesting. Like it makes you think a lot about yourself, or at least me, right? It's got me very like introspective and self-reflective in terms of what are the things that like make a video game special to me, right? And like make it something that like sticks with you, right? And like really like leaves an impact on you as a person rather than, oh yeah, that was a cool thing I played and then I forgot about it, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really had that like element of self-reflection with a game. But I do notice, you do notice things like even just stuff like on today's Shamu stream, he just like refuses to spar with this person because she's a woman, and he's like, I don't fight women, and like it just openly sexist comments that he was making. It was awful, and like, but it was self-aware. Like the character called him out about it, and it's interesting. Like I wouldn't have even clocked that when I played it as a kid. But you definitely do grow as a person, and like you realize and figure these things out.
Yeah, and like especially in like choice-based games, I love being presented with a choice and knowing what choice I made previously and being like, oh, I actually don't think that way anymore. Like I wouldn't make that choice now, right? Like
oh, interesting. I've never gone back and done like a choice. I've never really played that choice genre of game. I know it's one of your favorites, but
yeah.
Tell me why it was really one of the first that I went and played.
I fucking love games like that. I really do. And it's interesting. Like I had that in Mass Effect a couple times where I was like, oh, like, yeah, like I did this last time, and now I'm thinking about this in a different, I think about things in a bigger way than I did then, right? Like when I was playing it when I was a teenager, or like in my early.
You found your galaxy brain now, so.
Yeah, right. Where there's like moments where I'm like, oh, like, but the socioeconomic implications of this are a lot deeper than I was, like things like that of like, I don't know if I should be making this kind of decision, right? Like, or just whatever, right? Like, just thinking about like how actions ripple out in a bigger way than I thought they did when I was 16 or whatever, right? Like shit like that. So yeah, I think it's worth doing. I think it's worth identifying games that you feel really strongly connected to and giving it a shot.
Yeah.
It's been very valuable for me, at least. Anyway, that was a fun topic. I didn't think this is where the Last of Us Part 1 is actually good was going to go, but hey, that's the beauty of the show, I guess, right? So if you all want to write in and let us know what you thought about any of the stuff we discussed today, or if you want to hit us up with your own questions, your own thoughts for a main topic, remember, you can write in at questions@flipscreen.games. You can come and join our Discord where every week we ask for questions. Come and keep the conversation rolling. We always have a conversation in that thread as well after the episode ends about, whatever happened on the show. And it's a great time. You can come be a part of the community. It is a fun, inclusive place to come chat about games and meet with like-minded gamers like yourself. If you enjoy the show, you'll enjoy the Discord and being a part of the community. And, of course, head over to FlipScreen.games. You'll find links to all the places you can find us, including our Twitch channel, including our new second YouTube channel, FlipScreen Live, where all of our Twitch stream archives go, and all the other places that you can find us all around the web. FlipScreen.games, that's the website. So, thank you for joining us here on another episode of the cast. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.